Have you not listened to episode 15? It's with my old buddy Poker Face. After you listen to the new episode, download this one. Here's a clip. The first question, I know we're going to talk about your big event coming up Saturday because I want to talk about you with promoting and how it differs between wrestling and some of the different things you do that I see you doing than other promoters do. But I got a question for you, and me and Brian Thompson, this is kind of something me and Brian Thompson talk about all the time, but I want to know what's wrong with wrestling in the Memphis area?
Okay, well, I want you to put up a chair and get ready to cross your legs on this one now. Okay.
I'm ready, buddy. I'm going to let you talk.
Okay, and of course you're asking the right person, and my thing is, I mean, maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe you should ask what's right, which is probably nothing, and because I'm critical of the local independent area anyway when it comes, whether it's here in Memphis or the surrounding areas. And the thing is, and you mentioned, a couple of minutes ago, you have to approach this thing like a business, either small business, big business, but you have to approach it as a business, which means that you got to be willing to do what you got to do to turn a profit and to make money. And it's not all about money, but it's something about money. And a lot of guys, because you look at, how the promoters are today, when I put in quotation
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Let's start the party.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of Shootin' The Shiznit. This is episode 62, and we're live from STS Studios in St. Louis, Missouri, and it is Tuesday. Remember, this coming Thursday, we have a new episode of Who Wants to Be the Best Shiznitter Ever. I just want to real quick thank everyone for their help. Bob McGee at Between the Sheets, that's www.pwbts.com. Gene Jackson at Locals 2 Legends, who lets me post the episode every time. You guys can reach us at Shootin' The Shiznit on Facebook. We also have a Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk Facebook group. That's where we talk about wrestling. You have to answer a few questions. If you're an ass, we kick you out. You can reach me at Comic Book Mark BT on Twitter, at BT Shootin' The Shiznit on Instagram. Also, PayPal is Brian_Tramel at yahoo.com if you guys want to send me some money. And we have stickers, we have t-shirts, we have mugs, we have a little bit of everything at tinyurl.com/stspod.merch. No, that's stspodmerch. tinyurl.com/stspodmerch. And also at stspod.club, you can get all the old episodes. We're also on iTunes. If you're on iTunes, do us a review. Stitcher, Player FM, Pod Paradise, Spreaker. We're everywhere. I want to thank my buddies over at Suplex City Limits for the support, Creative Control, and my favorite non-wrestling podcast right now is Who's Right Podcast. You guys enjoy this episode. It's a good one. Thanks for listening. Come on from the green room. He's been over there eating milk and cookies. Come on, Dave, and welcome to Shootin' The Shiznit.
I appreciate the green M&Ms that was in my rider, and the Jack Daniels at 8:30 in the morning was very sweet.
Hey, we try to take it. Right under the little couch there's our hidden stash is what we like to call. But that's not for everyone.
I appreciate it.
I'm live from St. Louis, and you're all the way in Nashville, Tennessee. So one of my favorite places. But you're not originally from Nashville, right?
I've gotten around like I won't make the joke. I get around. It's about where I've lived. I grew up in South Jersey, Philadelphia area. So I grew up an NWA wrestling fan, along with WWF and I mean, literally where I grew up in the 80s, I got everything on television. But then I went to college in Boston, a school called Emerson College. So I lived in Boston, and I moved to L.A. when I was 20, then moved to Connecticut when I was 26 to go work for Vince McMahon in the WWE, then back to L.A. at 32, then Nashville basically about 6 years ago this week to work for the TNA Wrestling Impact Explosion Global Force, whatever it's called today, and still here in Nashville 6 years later as I work with Billy on the NWA.
I actually love Nashville, and for my my wife's first cousin, if you've ever seen Dolly Parton's wear a dress, she actually seamed the dress.
I thought this was going somewhere else.
No. She actually she puts the dresses together, so if you,
I understand.
Yeah, and she has one of those. I call it a dolly dummy. It's a mannequin in there where it's it's all the parts are correct. Let's just put it that way.
I would assume a lot of people have certain dummies that may listen to the show. I don't have one. I have 3 cats.
There you go. A cat guy. Well, there we go. Hey, one of the reasons I brought you on here, and this was what we actually talked. I just sent you something on Twitter. 3 or 4 weeks ago, and you said, hey, get in touch with me in October, and it was before everything else dropped or happened with NWA. Yep. So one of the reasons I wanted to bring you on was you worked on one of my favorite shows of all time, huge friends of Mark, and
it wasn't the Ladies' Man on CBS? It wasn't that one?
I loved Friends, the one where Ross meets Elizabeth's dad. And you are responsible for that.
Yep. Actually, about 5 days ago, I did an interview. Somebody's actually writing a book, not about me, thankfully, but about the history of Friends. And he reached out to me, and I was like, listen, I said, I only worked on the show 1 season. I wrote 1 episode. He's like, why? I was like, why are you reaching out to me? He goes, that's why, because he wanted different angles of everybody that worked on the show. When I worked on the show, I had just turned 24 years old. It was interesting because now I guess everybody that worked on the show was also the same age of what everyone was supposed to be on the show, even though they were aged up in real life. But it was a life-changing experience because here it is 17 years later and you're asking me about it. Not that you're not going to ask me about Jamie Noble and Nydia, but it was quite the experience. And I came on as a writer's assistant, and every year as sort of I don't want to say payback, but, as a way to help, all the hours we put in, they gave each of the writer's assistants an episode. And mine just happened to be the one with Bruce Willis. And it's, as I was telling the guy writing the book, it said, and I wasn't the giantest Friends fan, meaning like, I don't obsess about it, but I did enjoy working on it. But it has one of my favorite scenes, probably in the history of the show, is that dinner scene where, typical Ross and Rachel were having their miscommunication, and the ex-wife thing. Think about in the 90s how much of a joke the ex-wife thing is, and now it's almost reality. Like, all of his ex-wives and all that stuff is shockingly more reality than fiction.
Well, yeah, that's a great scene. I want to know, since you're the story by you and the whole 9 yards, and you probably watched the episode more than once. Did you ever catch the era that's in the episode?
Uh-oh. What did I do wrong? Please tell me what I did wrong.
During the scene where Phoebe's at the table and Chandler and Monica are standing up talking to her, one scene you can see the toilet paper, the front of the toilet paper, but within seconds, the toilet paper's been flipped around. Yeah,
that's usually well, that's a great catch, and there's probably when they edit, they usually go for performance, and at that point, and I wasn't actually really super involved in the post-production, short of the spelling of my name on the episode.
Right, you made sure that was right, yeah.
Yeah, and how pretentious I was back in when I was 24. I was like, my professional name's going to have the J in it, because I was a big Michael J. Fox fan, so that I used the J up until really I got into wrestling. So I don't know, it just made my name sound better. Not that it would really help at all, but that was my biggest concern on the post-production, was making sure that J was in there, because I had used it all the way through college, and like anything professional I had used the J, because there are other David Laganas, and there actually is one in the entertainment industry, so I thought that would separate me. But I actually I've never noticed it, but I'm sure others have.
I know, it shows you what big of a mark for. I was actually a huge Friends fan, and I guess once every 3 years I'll just go through them all again. Mac and Cheese. If everyone watches Friends, he was on the Mac and Cheese episode. I absolutely loved that. Yep. So that robot.
Yeah, the guy that played the robot's handler became friends with for like about 6 months, and he ended up doing like a bunch of Carl's Jr. commercials, and he was a good character actor. But the robot was. I was kind of sad they didn't do more with it. I thought it would have been a funny thing, but I also remember when they ordered the robot, that wasn't the robot they expected to get back. Todd Stevens, who was the line producer, like brought in all these sketches, and all the writers were like, "Oh, that's the one." And then that one showed up. It looked like straight off of the
so that line with Joey saying, "I expected something different," so that was actually reality.
Yeah, because they like what was that? Short Circuit. You know what I mean? It looked like the robot from Short Circuit.
That's what it looked like. Yeah.
So, and, it's funny when you talk about budgets, and we can discuss about wrestling, the show had a budget, and I'm sure finding a special, like those robots, like that robot probably was $500,000. Now, we didn't buy it. We had probably rented it. So think about it. Like if you wanted a specific robot, it was probably millions of dollars to build because it's a robot.
Right.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw, there's a news story about robots making pizza. I just saw that on my Amazon Alexa this morning. So our pizzas are now being made by robots, just to freak everybody out.
Well,
you're not going to get straight pro wrestling with me, by the way.
There
we go.
You're going to get craziness. This is a pro wrestling podcast. It doesn't mean we have to. It's called Shootin The Shiznit, so it's not like we really have to talk about pro wrestling. So
robots, pizza, friends.
There you go. The thing about it is, I did a little research. I usually don't, and that was the Friends thing was one of those things. I usually just call it in the ring kind of thing. But you were somebody that I wanted to talk to just for Friends and other things. But I come across things like, and you've been in. All right, you started in the wrestling business. What year? So this will give
2002. Quick backstory was, there was a big writer's strike in 2007, 2008 in Hollywood. And, when I decided to leave, I had worked on Friends, and I worked on like 6 shows in a row over 3 years that all got canceled within 3 episodes. So when you're out humping jobs, it's kind of soul-crushing at times because it has nothing to do with you. So in 2001... WWE had the invasion, so I kept sending my resume. I was a giant wrestling fan, and I had known some people that were in the business. And Brian Gewertz's uncle, Howard Gewirtz, who was a famous Hollywood writer, was a client at an agency I worked at. But that's not even how I got the job. I just kept literally faxing my resume because it was 2002 and you faxed.
Right.
So I just kept faxing, and then I was working on Jason Alexander's short-lived Bob Patterson self-help guru show that no one ever watched. Look it up on YouTube. There's not many clips.
I watched it, believe it or not.
You're the one. So I was working on that, and we got canceled on a Thursday. We were supposed to shoot that Friday. They wouldn't even let us finish the episode. So I got home, and in my mailbox that day was a letter from WWE Human Resources asking me to write a sample and send it back within 7 days. So literally that Friday, I went to work on writing my sample, and about 3 months later, I started in February of 2002.
Awesome. So, and then you have, and I hate to pick on Jimmy, because Jim Cornette, I've known him forever, but then we have guys like Jim who's been in the business forever, and other people that say, guys, writers, people like you who it's not a wrestling guy, even though you've been in it for so long. Why would they pick you to help with the wrestling promotion? How does that, with you being in the business for so long, how does that make you feel? They don't do that. They don't pick on people. Writers mean something in Hollywood where you came from, but when the word writers, when we talk wrestling, it seems like it's a dirty word.
Everybody has a writer. Jim Cornette has a writer. It's called his brain. And I love Jim. Jim's one of my biggest influences. One thing that people don't really know is in 1990, I was on a service called Prodigy. It was sort of the precursor to AOL and CompuServe.
Yep.
So Bob Ryder was on there, and also Dutch Mantell. And so in 1991, one of the very first videos I ever made was a music video for Jim Cornette that I sent to Dutch, And Dutch brought it over to Jim, watched it with Jim, and sent me notes. I've known Jim a very long time. Jim is one of the best promos that's ever existed in the business. Most people aren't, and I've worked with a lot of people, and by the way, we all need help. We all need producers. We all need inspiration points. We all need people, hey, try this line. And Jim has not been shy about saying this. He used to write all of the promos for the guys in developmental and WWE. Jim's a writer as much as I'm a writer. And it's all basically perception. Did I grow up in the business? I have now. I've spent the last 15 years, actually 16 years this year, writing, producing, directing, executing in pro wrestling. So because I haven't taken a bump, which I actually have taken a few, I get, and it's fine. But I let my legacy and the people I worked with, and I don't need to run down all the talents I've worked with, helped with, and helped design and change the trajectory of their career. But I have, and I'm not defensive about it beyond just the fact of I've done the work. Yes, when we hired a bunch of people that didn't really understand the business, but they didn't last very long. They would last 2 weeks to 6 months, and every time a new person would come in, and somebody who had been there longer would get kind of frustrated, either hearing what they got paid or just why is that person getting a chance. I said, just let it. Everything works itself out, and that's when it comes to the business. It always works itself out. And fans are very passionate. I'm not going to lie about that. And, it works itself out. And I've been very lucky, and I've worked really hard. I mean, before you and I got on this thing at 8:30 in the morning, I was working for an hour and a half getting stuff together. You have to get up and do the work every day. And I see a lot of people, oh man, I just want a shot. Well, cool, go do something. And that's my advice. If you want to be a writer or anything in the business, you got to do stuff. You can't just send 140 characters.
Right. Great answer. But I was so surprised at the years that you had in the business, and then still. Yeah. I grew up in the Memphis, Nashville area, and I'm about 10 years older than you, but that is the wrestling that I grew up watching, and I was a photographer, and I did a dirt sheet, and I did this, and now I'm doing that, and I always, no matter, people would listen to me, and then behind my back tell people I didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So I know how that feels. Let's talk about. We hear rumors, and people joke about this, and you worked for Vince, and you worked at TNA. But what is the deal with Vince and people sneezing or people being sick? Or is that just a joke, or is that the truth?
Everybody's got their quirks. They do. I mean, everybody does. I could sit and talk about everybody's quirks. Jim has quirks. I have quirks. Oh, yeah. I'm sure you have quirks. And that's Vince's are Vince's. And we could sit here and psychoanalyze, but yeah, he likes Law of the Jungle. I think actually Rusev cut that promo a couple weeks ago. That's Vince. So sickness is a weakness. So even when he's sick, you don't want to be around him when he's sick because he doesn't get sick, even though he does get sick.
Right.
It's just who he is, and it's worked out pretty okay for him. He's got $1 billion. And you and I are doing a podcast at 8:30 on a Monday.
Oh, thanks for putting it. But this is, there's at least 10 people listening to us, so that's.
Hey, that's 10 more than were this morning. I was just talking to my 3 cats, and they don't give 2 craps what I have to say.
All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back. I hope everyone's enjoying this episode of Shootin' The Shiznit. This coming Thursday, the special edition with Who Wants to Be the Best Shizniter Ever. That's right, this is a game show podcast, a wrestling game show podcast. So guys, do me a favor and listen this Thursday. It'll come right through your iTunes feed, or you can look through it on SoundCloud there. Listen to Who Wants to Be the Best Shizniter Ever. All right, Dave. Here's a few. We might as well talk a little bit more about wrestling and current stuff that's going on. Pretty much the oldest promotion ever. One of them anyway. NWA, and you're, I don't know, number one and in charge. You know, I know.
I'm the vice president, talent, operations, and cats. I know the cat part's not on my business card, but yeah, Billy's the president and owner through a production company called Lightning One. That way, you know, clear communication of the company is owned by Lightning One, which is Billy's production company, and I'm the vice president of not only the production company but NWA Wrestling.
Awesome. And, I mean, you know, a little bit, a little weight on your shoulders there. A few things about NWA and what you guys are doing. I've listened to Billy talk about a 20-year plan and such. My idea is that and let's hope there is. Do you believe there is is there a market out there for what you guys are going to do? Because I know that's the reason you did the business, but you know, you got TNA who seems to be being on Pop. They're going to get, you know, they're not even 500,000, but it seems to be the fans that they got are the hardcore fans that are going to stay there no matter what. Is it going to be very important to you guys to get on a bigger cable station than that and being on Spike or something like that to run a successful company?
Success is judged based upon what we're looking for. And it's funny, managing expectations of people, you know, when we bought this, and I have heard from everybody of, you boys don't know what you're doing, from people that, you know, used to manage the brand poorly. So our level of success is simply, and I've said this multiple times, is we bought a brand, we bought a logo, we bought a title that everybody recognizes, and we've inherited a legacy and an energy that surrounds this brand. So success to us is literally one step, one brick at a time. I'm not worried. The 20-year plan is this. We want exactly what we bought in 20 years to be worth 20 times to 200 times what we purchased for it through hard work, sweat, and equity. That's success. How we get there is all adaptable. I'm sure, let me ask you this. What has changed in the production, perception, formatting, execution of pro wrestling since 1998?
What has changed? I mean, it's,
yes.
The main thing is that we have, you know, everything's on demand. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, that's it. And, you know, you got promotions that spend tons of money on production that makes the, you know, really slick and looks as good as, you know, the WWE did at the time.
But all that stuff is behind a paywall. And it's never been more expensive to be a pro wrestling fan. Never. If you want to see, it's kind of amazing if you look at sort of these paywall companies, which, by the way, I understand the business and, you know, hand in the air. Yes, Billy has money, so he's willing to bet his own money to do this. Most people don't have that ability, which I'm very thankful that we're attacking it this way. Like iPay-per-views, like when I was at Ring of Honor, you know, we started iPay-per-views in 2011. We were doing 1,500 to 2,000 people watching the shows worldwide. Like how many wrestling fans are in the world?
Right.
I mean, it's if you do that math on that number, you're limiting your potential audience. So what our level of success is getting this brand in front of as many eyeballs in as many places as possible, not limiting the ability of the audience, and not. I'd love to have a 2-hour show on Spike, on USA, on any of these networks, but there's a cost to that. And you know, the Spike TV show was the blessing and the curse of TNA when I was there, because we were beholden to that money, and as soon as it went away, the company became the company. You know, and you have to build a solid foundation. So then when Billy talks about 20-year plan, and I talk very ethereal about what we want to do, it's because we want to do it right. And I don't mean like nobody else is doing it right, but we want to do what's right for us. So that's why everything, and we were talking about before we started, everything we do is based around the two things we bought, the branding and the title. And this morning we just released a new video about Tim Storm that helps you understand a little bit more, a little tease. It's 40 seconds. But these impressions are important, at especially the level we're operating. The company is just Billy and I right now, because if we were to hire, and trust me, I've had everybody inbox me with their resume, and man, I'm a referee from Portland, Oregon. I want to work for you. Great. I don't need a referee from Portland, Oregon right now because I'm not running shows. So, but if the referee said, listen, I can shoot, edit, do graphic design, I know a guy here, a guy there, that's what we're looking for. we're going to scale based upon the skills and desire that everybody has. And to me, the story of if Billy and I can take this brand that everybody has an opinion on and a feeling on, and it's a startup company. I mean, it's amazing that the oldest wrestling company in history is now a startup. And if we can tell this story accurately, which we're doing, you know what I mean? Like, that's the plan with these videos, and I'm shooting and editing and directing them and doing them myself at this point as we scale, because this story needs to be told. Just like I think every wrestling promotion and every wrestling talent, booker, writer, there's an opportunity to really connect with an audience differently than, did you see that run-in and that guy screwed him for the world title? Like, there's so many other stories that can exist in this universe, and I think that's where we can win, because nobody else is telling that. Everybody else is worried about their booking. Booking will not solve the pro wrestling decline. 12 to 16-year-old kids don't care about booking. They care about something that's cool.
I agree, and that's part of making NWA means something to me. I think as the years went on, it doesn't mean as much right now at this point as it did. Well, you know that, as it did.
How can it?
And then people, you got those people that say, well, they can't do anything because of this, and it's always the negativity. And I always feel that, and I watch TNA, Impact, whatever you want to call it. I still watch it every week. I support it. I'm really for that guy that's going to be not just against the WWE, but we need an alternative. We need something that's different, that's not the WWE, and that's what I like about it. You got a guy, Tim Storm, and a lot of people aren't familiar with him, and I actually am. I've seen Tim in TCW when he worked for Matt Riviera in that company. Tim is a good-looking guy, great body. Reminds me. You
want me to give you his number?
No, I might have it. No, I'm just kidding. Tim looks like, he reminds me of like Magnum TA and that brand of wrestler, that 80s NWA wrestler. He really does look like that. I watched his interview this weekend from Championship from Hollywood. Came on, did a really good promo. The crowd, and I don't know how much filtering they do with the crowd sound and everything on that show. But everything that was post-production, everything it looked like Tim was a star. I mean, a total superstar on that show with the reaction and holding the belt. Here's the only thing about Tim is that he's a little older, because me and Tim are pretty much the same age. Is it? And I know the perceptions. If he takes off his shirt, he doesn't look. I mean, he doesn't have as good a body as I do, but no. But,
I can book the pose down. We'll do it on a podcast.
So here we go with Tim Storm, and why? He was the champ when you guys. Was he the champ when you bought the? And
Yep.
We're going to stay with Tim Storm, or is it something that? And you said you just did a video. So mainly what I'm trying to say is, what do you guys see in Tim Storm?
I see a story, and look at the legacy of. I would say, if you look at the list of NWA World Champions and you lay them down next to the list of World Champions in all the major organizations across the years, I think the WWF one, before they split the title, the WWF legacy had strong, marketable characters who fit the brand style. Tim fits in that the box checking minus one thing. Tim just never had the exposure, So you face a challenge, and trust me, Billy and I explored all of it, and we had various different approaches. We were going to start running earlier, but the affiliates made it difficult because we wanted exactly what you just said about the perception you had on Tim based upon watching that one interview. We wanted to make sure that you weren't distracted by the environment, meaning you were focused on Tim and he was presented as a star, and I think that. Tim's never had that. Matt Riviera did great stuff at TCW with him, and he is worth the stories, and he's a quality human being. I've dealt with some not quality humans, and Tim is all for the brand. He appreciates the respect that Billy and I have given him. We've been nothing but honest with Tim. That's the important part. And, you talk to enough people in wrestling, and it's, all right, brother, we got all these great crowns, brother. And every brother indicates the front end of a lie. So, we've been very honest. Hey, Tim, I want you to come to L.A. Hey, Tim, we're going to do this. And everything I've told him has come true, and there have been no promises beyond just, if you trust us, we're gonna tell your story, because guess what? Everybody's got a great story, and there's no reason not to tell Tim's, because he is the champion. And, yeah, he is 52 or 53 years old. Why not tell that? Why not? And I've used this analogy a lot. It's like watching the movie Rocky, and he's the champion at the beginning. You're curious what his story is. Like, I didn't know this until recently. He's a school teacher. 5 days a week, he's teaching school. That's interesting. And you might say, well, why? That may hurt the perception of the brand. What perception? Nobody knows anything. So the fact that our world champion is educating the future of America, that's interesting to me. And again, the kids, I'm not going to have the kids sitting front row. We're not going to do the cheesy 80s sitcom version, though if I could, I would. That's interesting. And tell me tell me something about Jinder Mahal beyond what you see on television that they put as part of the story.
Right, you're right.
That's the point.
There's no, and I agree with you.
So
and Tim does have a story.
Yeah, and I can compete because and I don't think people have done enough into what Billy and I have done the last year. Billy and I traveled the country and produced 30 documentaries in 30 days. We produced over 4.5 hours of content that did 5 million views across all these social medias for $30,000. Like that amount of impressions and brand building, it's possible. You don't need the average TNA road show. 2 hours production alone cost $400,000.
Right.
For at the time we did 1 million viewers. So you start doing the math and you just go, geez, wait, can I scale this business differently? And that's what I mean. I don't need to have a 2-hour show with a roster of 40 because you got to get the product right. A lot of companies rush a product to market. And by product, I mean worldwide scale. Right now, we're a startup company, very much like an Airbnb in 2009, 2010, that offered a service where you could sleep on somebody's couch at a discounted rate. But they spent 4 years getting the service right. So for us, getting this brand right is paramount, and then we'll scale. We've turned down a lot of stuff that would make us much bigger, much faster. But we have to get the product right, and we have to set the vision. It's why I'm doing literally every interview I can, because I want there to be this sort of blanket of honesty of what we're trying to do. So it stops people going, well, they should be doing a territory. Cool. Tell me the last successful group of territories that existed. You know what I mean? Like, that just doesn't seem to work. But if I can build it, I'd rather build it from scratch than trying to build it upon a rickety foundation that wasn't working 6 months ago.
Right. NWA champion to me is that guy that walks through the door as you had him walk through Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and the next time he walks, if you guys have, some kind of partnership with TNA or something, that walks in and defends his title against nothing against Eli Drake, but who I like. But they send him to Japan and he wrestles Cody Hall instead of wrestling one of the top guys. To me, the NWA champion was Flair came to Memphis. Who did Flair wrestle? Flair wrestled Jerry Lawler. He was the top guy. And Tim walking out on television was so classic to me. I was like, well, I got to watch this because I knew he was going to be on it. And like I said, I've met Tim, been around him a little bit backstage at TCW, and just can't say enough good things about him. And everyone that works with him, I'm good friends with Brian Thompson, who did announcing there. Nothing but good things to say about Tim.
Quality human. I call it. There's no brother. And I talked to, and here's the difference. Bruce Tharpe did a lot of great things. Without Bruce Tharpe, the NWA would never have been consolidated under one person. Bruce did what he could from where he was. But Bruce had his faults, just like everybody. But what I tried to do was, and I had to hear it, well, Bruce did this. I said, well, I'm not Bruce. I said, right. Did Bruce answer your phone call on the first ring? And I tried to be as accommodating to all these promoters. And honestly, I understand they all want to look out what's best for them. My job, though, is to look out what's best for the brand. So, Tim and I's conversations always went that way. And Tim realizes that his career is on the not downside. It's on the twilight. So he wants this period to be where people learn about him, and that was all we discussed. And and I laid out a simple thing, and I hope Tim is with us in some capacity moving forward. And here's the thing: anyone who's held that belt, as long as they've respected the belt and the company, will be part of the voice of this company moving forward. And Tim is a great spokesman. He's well spoken. He looks great in a suit. He's a professional. And the business is called professional wrestling. And when and guys who wrestle in jean shorts and t-shirts and don't work out, which would be me if I was a pro wrestler, you need to look at this as a job. And by the way, we're all professionals now. Now that as soon as you got a Facebook account or a Twitter account or an Instagram, you're now a character in this world. Unless you're an anonymous person who doesn't have any of that, you give all that up once you sort of start broadcasting. And that's a responsibility, and some people don't seem ready to take that responsibility on.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I wish the best of luck for you guys. We need an alternative, and NWA is, as I said, has a special place in my heart because, not 85, 86, 87, and then, older. I always, like I said, one of the biggest shows ever was when Ric Flair was, for me, was on going against Lawler and walked out on television. And I just watched that when Lance passed. I went down the rabbit hole, which I'm sure a lot of people did, and I went to Lance's celebration, and I saw Jerry, and I was talking to Jerry about it, and I was like, "That you want to learn about the business? Like there's going to be 3 hours of Raw tonight, and I would say probably 7 to 9 minutes are going to be things we talk about tomorrow, and then maybe 1 to 2 minutes or something you talk a week from now. The Jerry Lawler Ric Flair match from Memphis, I think it's about 35 minutes with the whole segment and everything. That was what, 81, 82, 83, and here you and I are talking about it 35 years later. Like, seriously, spend 30 minutes if you're listening to this. Go search it on YouTube. It's really easy to find. It is a master class on every level, just in how Lawler speaks to Flair, Flair speaks to him, how Lance does it on psychology, and I would think more people should spend time looking and learning from that. And I'm not saying don't support all the great wrestling that's going on, but you want to create stuff that's going to leave a lasting impression. And it's all up to the creator to make that happen. But yeah, that Lawler Flair thing, it's really good. Like, it's so simple, and and it's tied to the history. And I want a champion. And Tim isn't Ric Flair. I'm sorry, it's just not gonna. You know what I mean? Like, Tim is a very humble, quiet man that you'll see come to life in all this. And I think that's what's really great with all of it. I agree. Hey, man, Dave, our time is up, but I want to try to bring you up maybe back in 6 months to a year and let us know what's going on. I appreciate you taking 30 minutes of your time. I know you're a busy man. Everyone, I want to thank everyone for listening to us. And remember, we're the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be here, same bat time, same bat channel next week. Hey, man, thanks a lot.
5 years, the NWA World Heavyweight title is on Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, and Tim Storm is holding it. This is absolutely historic.
A day for the record books for sure, Johnny LaFausto. As the NWA Heavyweight Champion returns to the Ocean View Pavilion.
The most iconic title in the history of professional wrestling.
All right, friends. Tim, look like they like you.
I like you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, so this is kind of a dual reunion here, ladies and gentlemen. Not only am I reunited with Sweet Charlotte and the 10 pounds of gold, but also Tim Storm. Many people might not know you and I worked with each other almost for 2 decades, huh?
20 years ago, we stood in a ring just like this. That's right.
That's right. And back then, Dan Severn was the world's champion.
And I had a shot at Dan Severn for this title, too. So that's a lot of history.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you tell the folks at home, what does it mean to be the man?
Let me start with this. This is wrestling history. This legacy, 53 men before me have had the pleasure and the honor of strapping this around their waist. Men like Luthez, Ric Flair, Dusty Rhodes, Terry Funk, Dory Funk, Jack Briscoe, Gary Von Erich, AJ Styles, and Adam Pearce. So knowing the history of this title, I stand here proudly with honor and carry this strap that means more to me than anything I've ever done in wrestling. This is wrestling history. And Dave, I have defended this all over the United States and all over the world. But to this day, sometimes I still have people ask, now who is the NWA World Heavyweight Champion? Here's what you need to know. If you don't know, you're about to find out, because this is my mountaintop. This is the pinnacle of the most important thing I have ever done in wrestling, and I will never, ever let this go. And that is a fact.
All right, the 10 pounds of gold, Tim Storm, here in Championship Wrestling from Hollywood. Who's going to chase that? Only time can tell.